We've all heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. But the thing that we often forget is that it also takes one to support the mother.
Well, speaking of the village, this is our podcast. I'm Nicole Harlow.
And I'm Dawn Thompson. And we're here to connect you with a village of support you need from pregnancy to parenting.
So come on this journey with us as we build your village one episode at a time.
All right. Hey, welcome to the show. Speaking of the village, I am Dawn Thompson, your host, with my co-host, Nicole Harlow. And today we're joined with Kaitlin McGreyes from BeHerVillage, which of course is appropriate to be on Speaking of the Village with a great name like that. I actually met Kaitlin. Where did we meet? At the
in San Francisco.
In San Francisco at the at what was it called? The Women's
the Future of Maternal Care and the Women's Digital Health Expos.
That's right. That's what it was, the Digital Health Expos. And of course, you and I just hit it off immediately. It was like we were besties in like about 30 seconds because we both just know, this world of maternal health and how passionate we are about helping women get the support that they need and how terrible it is that most women don't have it or get it or even know how to build it, which is exactly why you've built what you've built and we've built this podcast and Birthify. We all have the same purpose, and that is to arm women with more support, more information so that they can just have better experiences, birth and postpartum. So today's topic, I think, is a big one, and it's something I talk about all the time, is like we in society, we are told that, you save for your wedding, right? You save, you plan, you do all these things, but we rarely invest that same amount of effort and time and planning into arguably a significantly more important date, in my opinion, of the birth of your baby. So let's talk about that a little bit, Kaitlin. Like, how did you get here? And tell people a little bit about yourself and BeHerVillage.
I love it. Thank you guys both for having me. How did I get here? My goodness, that's an open-ended question. Essentially, I got here through my own experience in the maternal health care system, having an absolutely mundane birth, like nothing specific happened, except it was sort of miserable. I was treated as an afterthought. I had induction, epidural, C-section, postpartum anxiety. It was just like, it was the normal script for maternal health care in this country. And I felt really frustrated that was my experience. I was a strong, outspoken, intelligent, independent woman in my late 20s at the time. And I could not believe how quickly motherhood and the lack of infrastructure around motherhood really cut me down and really made me sort of like less than who I was. And I entered motherhood in a really rough way. And so I went on to have a really healing, redemptive birth for my second baby. Ended up being a VBAC, but it was healing and redemptive before the baby came out. VBAC, for anyone who's listening and doesn't know, it's vaginal birth after cesarean. And that really led me to the question of how could those two birth experiences and postpartum experiences be so different when they were 23 months apart for the same parents, same, socioeconomic level, same house we were in, the same marriage. It was just like, there was nothing different. How could they be so different? And really what it came down to was that the second time I became an active participant in my care, I hired a doula. I got books out from the library, like actual books. I feel old saying that, but I got books out and read stats in books. And they weren't even pro VBAC. They weren't even necessarily the best books, but I just was hungry for information. I hired a doula and I went into my doctor's appointments with questions. And I put away about 6 weeks worth of food. I could not stuff any more frozen meals into my freezer. And I lined up support. I had mom friends. My partner had slightly more time off, which was days for us. It was not enough, but there was a really different vibe going into the second one. And so after that birth, shortly after that birth, I took my doula out for breakfast and I said, how do I do this? I need to become a doula. This was so impactful on my experience. How do I do what you're doing? And she invited me to our local doula organization. She told me where to go get trained. And when my second baby was 5 months old, I was attending my doula training, and then a couple of weeks later, attending my first birth as a doula. And that set me off accidentally, but on purpose. That set me off onto this. Before I knew it, I hadn't even talked. I still, by the way, I'm 12 and a half years postpartum from that first baby. I still haven't talked to my husband about maybe I should go back to work. Like we just jumped in 2 feet first, and I was booked out as a doula. And then I had another baby at home, and I then built out a doula team and a mentorship, and it just happened. And in that doula work, what really happens, and anyone who's a birth worker knows this, there's like a healing that happens. And it's not a healing that's at the forefront, right? Because that's not, you should not go be a doula to heal yourself, but it actually just sort of happens naturally because you're just exposed to so many experiences and all these intimate moments. And one of the things that really stuck out for me was seeing all these wonderful, beautiful people I was supporting still struggling in that postpartum time, still sort of in this cross section between their preparation, which was and is very product focused, and their actual needs when having a baby, which is not product focused at all, which is very much, speaking of the village, BeHerVillage, it is all about community and support. And I think that what happened for me was I saw that intersection and I saw the huge gap, and I saw it both through the lens of being that unsupported mother that was sitting. I always tell this story. It's sitting there 3 days postpartum with my first baby, naked, crying, trying to latch my baby, trying to take a shower. That's why I was naked. I didn't know how to take a shower with a baby who, it was just, I was a mess and I was alone. And I was trying to go to the doctor's office for our 3-day post checkup. It was a humbling moment, and it happened in my nursery, which was perfect because that was where I spent all of my time and energy, picking out the diapers, drawing a mural, not drawing, but painting a mural, putting together the crib, make sure all the furniture, all the baby gear was perfect. And then I sat in the corner and cried. Like, if that is not American motherhood these days, I don't know what is. It's a pretty universal experience, unfortunately. And I think really for me, it's like, I can be a doula to 50 people. My team can do 100 people a year, and the people we were supporting, my goodness, like we're just forever linked, right? It's just such a beautiful experience to be able to support someone, but only those 100 people were able to get that care. And all of them, 100% of them, because this is a few years ago, were paying out of pocket. They were paying cash money. They were paying money that they had extra. And it became just wildly obvious to me that, like, first of all, not everybody has that extra money, but also every single person deserves this level of support in their birth, in their prenatal, and in their postpartum time. They deserve the support. It goes beyond just the birth doula work, right? That was just sort of my entryway.
Right.
And so I got here because I was driving up to Albany, New York. I'm from New York. And I was going to lobby day for New York midwives, where we go to the Capitol and you knock on doors of politicians and you tell them to vote for like pro-midwifery, pro-women things, which is kind of I was a political science major in school. One of my favorite things is to go tell politicians what I think about how they're doing their jobs. So I was on my way to do that. And I just had this like question mulling around in my head of like, how do we get everybody a doula? How do we get everybody a doula? And I knew, and I know now, there are so many people working on this question in really big and important ways that are long, long journeys, right? It's like the Medicaid question that's getting rolled out. There's little bits of progress, and we have to celebrate every bit of them. But at the same time, there's mothers right now, and I was one of them, that need the village immediately. They need it yesterday. Right? Yeah. They need it tomorrow. They need it. And sometimes I say, I do this for my daughter. And it's like, yeah, I do it for her, but she's 8. She'll be fine. Like and I'm her mother. I do it for the woman right now that is pregnant and is getting bombarded with advertisements and messaging that the way that she needs to prepare is by filling up her baby registry, focusing on her nursery, preparing her home only for this new baby.
Right.
And all of the money, both her money and her family's money, and also the community surrounding her, right? The gift givers, the people who care about her and want to celebrate her, all of their money goes into products. And the end result right now, current day, is people having these beautiful Instagram and Pinterest and TikTok worthy nurseries, beautiful themes. Oh my goodness, I could look at them all day long.
Yeah. And then they're sitting,
support.
right. And then they're sitting in the corner crying naked. Bleeding nipples in the middle of the night with nobody else around.
And you know, it's like, it's almost a rite of passage, except it doesn't have to be. Like, it is the rite of passage to have that moment of like, oh my God, how do I take care of this baby? When do these maternal instincts kick in? My maternal instincts kicked in like anxiety. I was like, oh my God, I love this baby so much. I'm scared of the world. That wasn't what I expected. I didn't know it was going to feel like that. I couldn't pick apart the love from the fear, you know? And I think what happens is like, there's this, you know, you hear like things are common, but not normal. Like, it is common for motherhood to feel really hard. It is common for mothers to struggle in the newborn and postpartum time. It is common for us to have the crying in the corner with the baby alone and struggling. It is common for us to have those moments. It's not normal. It's preventable. Right. There are studies that show how to prevent it. Every other developed country in the world is preventing it through, you know, in-home postpartum care, guaranteed paid parental leave, and actually giving parents and mothers the support they need to thrive in that postpartum time. And that has really become my mission and how we've gotten here. And I know it's why both of you are here too. It's so important for us to break through this messaging around what the fancy new bouncer is and what the buzzing new stroller is, and the snoo going back and forth and strapping kids in. Like, how about we support parents in their day-to-day lives with their new babies instead of creating gadgets that replicate the parent in a way that's not even effective.
And the parent or the support system, the grandma, the auntie, the, you know, like whatever it is. I mean, I'm actually speaking on this topic at an acupuncturist conference. They invited me to come speak about, you know, that helping, how acupuncturists can help instill this idea of the village, how necessary it is. I feel like sometimes though, Kaitlin, do you ever feel, I mean, like, I know right now we're outliers, right? Like, everything I talk about, for the most part, I'm an outlier. I mean, it'll only take you a few seconds to go to my TikTok channel and go look at my viral videos and to see that I'm an outlier, because every comment is like, you don't know what the F you're talking about, right? And I think about, and this subject has come out multiple times to me, is this, you know, the doctor, I can never remember his name, but the doctor who discovered that the reason that people were dying was because doctors weren't washing their hands. And there's a whole, I don't know if people know this story, but there's actually a museum that has his story highlighted, because he was such an outlier that his entire community, all of his colleagues, drove him insane, literally drove him to insanity. And well, that's not true. He became so like over the top about trying to say to these people, like, you just got to wash your hands. You're killing people, right? And he was becoming more and more agitated because people were shunning him. His community, I mean, especially his colleagues, they were just shunning him to the point that they convinced his wife that he needed to be put into an insane asylum, that he was crazy, where he eventually died in this insane asylum, only a short time later for them to actually prove what he was so passionately saying, you know, that he was correct. And I think that, like, that's the hardest part about what we do. It's like, everything that we're saying, we're still the outliers, you know, which is just crazy. But I mean, I've been doing this for 22 years, I see that we're making progress. I see that we're getting there. It's better from like the doula standpoint. And the other thing that I talk about a lot is the fact that doulas have the most productive view of the maternal health care system, meaning they see birth in every location. They see birth with every doctor and or approximately every doctor and nurse in their community, the longer they do it. They see they see home birth, they see birth center, they see hospital, they see all the different hospitals. They see what's going well, what's going not well, and I think that you are speaking to what the other side of that looks like. And you just totally spoke to my heart. My husband constantly was saying, as I was doing this doula work, he was just like, when you mentioned you could only service 100 people in a year, right? My husband kept saying the same thing to me. He was just like, there has to be a way that you can help more people at a time. And that's how we got on our journey very similarly. I mean, like, my journey was the same. Like, I had horrific birth experiences, and I thought for the longest time that it was normal, that like it's what everybody goes through, right? And I thought that it was just like, it's just how it is, until I became a doula and I saw what the possibilities were. And I saw the families who did get support from me and did get that support postpartum, that did have a bunch of meals. I do meals while as a postpartum doula. I would meal prep for them all the time, and like, you just see what a difference that makes. It's huge.
I really want to go back to talking about like the point that you made, Kaitlin, about the stuff, the products, the biggest bouncer on the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 babies and then we purged everything because we were done. And in the quickest time, I got pregnant again. And he just turned a year last week, and we had to get all the things, right? Like, but we didn't have to get all the things because I knew better this time. And like, as he grew and needed different things, we got them, and we didn't pay for any of them. Not because they were gifted with a fancy little sprinkler shower, but because right now, in today's day and age, there are so many mom Facebook groups, Buy Nothing Facebook groups, like marketplace things, that all the stuff, I am convinced any mom, almost anywhere in this country, could get everything she needed secondhand. Now, there's certain things, obviously, you don't want secondhand. Like, I'm not talking about bottle nipples or anything like unsanitary here. But all of those like big ticket items, the swing, the bouncer, the walker, the playpen, the play mats, you name it, right? Even also like baby carriers. Like, I'm a huge proponent of baby wearing, but like through my first couple babies, I liked this one. It was comfortable for me. Baby hated that one. Had to like go through a couple different baby carriers. So like, I love these groups and I'm part of these groups, and I have no ego when it's associated to, oh, someone might have used this for 3 days before I did, like 3 times that baby used it and my baby needs a brand new one. So it's not like moms are not able to get the stuff. Like, there's always a way.
Yeah.
So that was always a big thing for me with my later, children. It's like, I don't need this stuff. I need the support. And like, another thing I want to talk about is like, it's the family a lot of the times that like wants to buy the new stuff and wants to, be I'm going to make this big purchase for you. So I think education around how to ask for what you truly need is really important too.
Absolutely. And I sort of want to bring the two thoughts that both of you just had and put it together to say that like part of why we are still niche, why we're outliers, why we are not part of the mainstream, and we being the people speaking about postpartum care for mothers, the people pushing paid leave, the people trying to, not focus on products, but really get some sort of support infrastructure in place for new mothers, is because, Nicole, of that overemphasis on products. But what's really happened is motherhood has been commodified.
100%.
Motherhood has become something where if they can advertise, if they can spend this many millions of dollars on advertising, they will make this many billions of dollars on selling their stuff. And what gets lost in that equation is what mothers actually need. And it's sort of wild to think about that, but that is the reality of what's happening right now, is that anybody who can dream up, a new gadget or a new feature on a gadget. I mean, Nicole, your list was a very short list and it already sounded like a house full of baby stuff, right? The play mat, the play thing, the play this, the play that. I have on our podcast, we have this amazing conversation with the founder of the Tum Tum, and she's a pediatric physical therapist, and she's talking about the danger, the actual harm that is done to your baby when they are put into these gadgets and devices, car seats, bouncers, chairs, for hours on end. It's just it's not only not helpful, it can be harmful to your baby and cause these issues. And when you have these companies that are really motivated by a profit margin, that are motivated by their bottom line, I'm sure many of them start out as intending to help mothers. And certainly if you look at their packaging, they're all making huge promises about how they will impact the life with baby. Baby will sleep better, easier, never easier, one-handed, this, that. And nobody really gets to the heart of it, which is that taking care of a new little human being for 24 hours a day, there is not an item in that baby store or on that website that is going to make that as easy as if you had people supporting you, as easy as if you had somebody coming in and addressing your mental health, which can be as simple. You don't need a whole degree. I mean, if you escalate to that, that's fine, but it can be as simple as, hey, this feels really hard because this is really hard. Just a validating statement, right? Like, this is new motherhood is feeling hard. You don't have to enjoy every moment. Right. I can show you how to latch your baby. I can show you the best way to bottle feed. I can hold the baby while you go take a nap. Like, there are just little things that can be done for new parents that make a deeper impact, a longer lasting impact, and give you more than any product on the market.
Yeah. I would love to say right here that like, if you're pregnant right now, please send this podcast to your family and friends and help them understand and really create a list of the things that you need for real. Like, whether it's meals, whether it's postpartum
clean your house.
Yeah, somebody come clean your house. And I think I really encourage people. I do a lot of I've done a lot of videos in the past of like, all right, send this to your family. And then I say, you're not coming over to just hold the baby. If you're coming over and it's that first month, you should be coming over with the intention of doing something helpful.
Yeah.
Doing dishes, doing laundry, letting mom take a nap, shower, supporting, holding that baby while she can go do those things. Or maybe she just wants to go bond with her baby and just would be relieved if you made her some lunch. Right. So like I say, put this list together and talk to your family ahead of time and set these expectations.
I'll never forget, it was my second born, and I had wrote this letter to my family, who at the time was my father, my mother-in-law, my mother, I knew would understand, but the other two are always, a little difficult. Some aunts, uncles, like those main people around. And I was so nervous to send it out, but it had my boundaries. It had, hey, you're not coming until X, it was this whole big thing. I had a Lotus birth planned for that baby 3 of mine were, but he was my first. So like I had to explain what that meant and that they're going to see a placenta bag attached. And like, I was so nervous, and sending it out was just such a relief. It was like much better taken than I anticipated it, right? Like I built it in my head that everyone was going to like give me so much shit. Right. And they didn't. They were like, okay, cool, whatever you want. And then my son was born 2 weeks after the COVID lockdowns here in New Jersey. So I was like, oh, good. I'm not the bad guy. COVID's the bad guy. Like, it's keeping you away, not me. But it was great because it allowed me to kind of create that process too, because with my third and my fourth, I had additional requirements. And, you know, it was easier to just like, hey, I know I've been through this before. This is my boundaries. And like moms are allowed to have boundaries with their new baby. You know, if you don't want the parade to come through the next day, the next week. I mean, with Dominic, I wouldn't let anyone hold him for over 2.5 weeks. It was my baby. It was my last baby. So I was going to be the one to hold him. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to come over and see him and watch me hold him, that was fine. You know, I remember too, my dad messaging me a couple days after he was born and was like, why haven't I gotten many pictures? And I'm like, because like we've literally been just like skin to skin in bed, naked, like, you know, right. He's like, put clothes on that kid and send me a picture. And I was like, no, I don't need more clothes for like the first couple of days, you know. It was just, and again, being the outlier, like I know other people, I don't know anyone who's done that, right? But I think we're so conditioned, especially, I want to talk about this, like the wedding, right? Like how we act as a bride and like having all the stuff and all the things for the wedding and the image and, you know, that how we're almost conditioned like, oh, our family wants to do all the things for us in that capacity. And then it comes to birth and it's almost like a replicated process, but with a baby instead of a wedding, like, you know, a cake essentially. Mm-hmm. But the big difference is the investment, right? Like, I feel like we're so eager to spend, you know, get that wedding budget and get the dress and get all the things and not afraid to spend on the wedding. And then it comes to the birth of your baby and it's like, oh, I don't have enough money for a doula. Oh, I don't have enough money for pelvic floor therapy. It's not covered by my insurance. Oh, I don't have enough money to get pre-cooked nourishing meals for my postpartum. Like, why? And, you know, Kaitlin, you've probably dove way deeper into this, but like, why do we do this to ourselves as a society? Why do we prioritize the wedding and not our own birth experiences?
Yeah, I love it. So I think there's two factors here. One is there is spending on babies. There is spending on that occasion. It's just done at the baby shower and it's all products. But there's $12 billion a year spent on baby shower gifts or baby gifts, products that are bought not by the parents. And there's like $80 billion a year, something spent on products for babies. So there's money being spent on the baby occasion. So I think that's the first thing, to recognize that the money is there. And that is actually what piqued my interest. It was like, so how do we just sort of like shift how that's spent? But I think when trying to answer that question, if there is money funneling towards new parents and new mothers from their community, much like there's money funneling towards them for their wedding, right? People are actually, let me say this, generosity there's no shortage of it. There are so many people willing to open their wallets and their hearts and spend time and energy supporting newlyweds, supporting new mothers, supporting retirement, supporting, you know, all of our occasions. I just jumped to retirement, but you know, right. There's no shortage of generosity. That is not the issue. The issue is that the only tools we have available to us right now are in that mainstream, that will continue in that mainstream because that is the way the money flows. And if you ever have a question about how things work, you just have to follow the money. It is very, very simple. The other part of this, though, I mean, we could go into like where the money goes and how we've shifted that, and I want to, but the first way that we have to shift it is you have to recognize the work of mothers. And I don't just mean that like baby, diaper changing and nursing and feeding, but like it is work to give birth. It is work to be pregnant. Being pregnant and giving birth, and honestly, even if we're expanding into surrogacy and adoption and all this, like honestly, being handed a newborn baby is work.
Yes.
It is hard. Even if we take the birth and pregnancy out of the equation, it is a hard thing to take care of a newborn. And rather than treating that transition into motherhood of the act of bringing this baby into this world, instead of treating that as a monumentous thing, as big as dedicating our lives to another human being, legally and otherwise, it is not treated with the respect that it deserves. It is not treated, with the rehab that it deserves. At the medical level, it's not treated. We are sent home from the hospital or wherever we're giving birth, but most of us at the hospital, right? We're being sent home and saying, see you in 6 weeks. Good luck.
Yeah,
the riskiest 6 weeks of a mother's life, by the way. Riskiest to her. I don't know if I'm saying that word right. Anyway. And so like at the medical level, the infrastructure is not there. We're not seeing a medical professional for 6 weeks. We're sent home with a brand new baby. Baby gets appointments. Baby gets appointments left and right. You do nothing but go to weight checks and pediatrician's appointments. But for the actual mother, there's nothing for the first 6 weeks. And then you have the postpartum prep, which is quite honestly, that's a new phrase for many people. Many people, if we're talking about the mainstream, many people actually equate the word postpartum with postpartum depression. They think of that as a synonym, which again, common, not normal. It's not a bad word to equate because so many of us struggle. But why are we struggling? We're struggling because you're going to go into one of the most intense transitions of your life, hormonally, physically, sleep-wise, the dynamics of your relationship. Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Why is the baby crying? Who am I as an individual? And that was a big one for me. Who am I? Because I used to be Kaitlin McGreyes, and now I'm Caesar's mom. And oh my God, that's literally all I can identify as, even though I am a multi-layered, very interesting person. That was all I was for those 6 weeks. It was so intense. And rather than being prepared for that, rather than having affirmations, rather than having a lactation consultant to call when my nipples were bleeding and cracked and breastfeeding wasn't going right, rather than having this team in place or even any expectation of what postpartum would look like. I mean, and I felt like I was not clueless, but it's not me is the thing, right? I'm saying my story, but we do not prepare for the postpartum time. We prepare for it with strollers and bouncers and play mats and bibs and pajamas and cute things. And then as soon as the baby comes out, while we are trying to figure out which way is up, there's this sort of social pressure to post a cute photo, to thank everyone for their cute outfits, to get on social media and show people the real side of postpartum, but the cute real side, right. There's this, you have to have an online presence when I am postpartum. No, thank you. I am disappearing from the planet for a little while so I can figure out which way is up. And so if we helped parents really understand the realities of taking care of a newborn, and that it is literally not something one person can do. You cannot get all of your own needs met and get the needs met of a baby at the same time without some kind of help. Something is going to get dropped. And not
say that louder for the people in the back.
Yes. And what's going to happen is you're going to drop your needs, right? If you have the choice and you don't have that village set up, you are going to drop your needs. The other thing I just want to point out, because there's so much here, is it's really easy for the three of us to sit here and talk about this. It's really easy for birth professionals and all these wonderful people supporting mothers to talk about this in a, clinical, professional way. And it's really easy for a pregnant person to sit here going, oh, yeah, okay, I'll line that up. It is a whole other ballgame to be sleep deprived. And we don't talk about the sleep deprivation and the fog that it puts on your thoughts and the fog that it puts on your experience and how it makes everything feel harder. And so there's that amplification when you're not getting sleep, when you're tending to an around-the-clock baby and their needs. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with the baby needing around-the-clock care. That's a normal baby. Right. The thing that's not normal is one mother sitting in her box of a house or apartment, whatever, alone, trying to figure it out by herself. Right. That's not the normal thing. And you could buy every single baby product on Amazon. You're still going to be lost by yourself sitting in that room with that baby. And so I think part of it is like, how do we shift? We have to find a way to shift the behavior and take that money, that big pot of money. People are generous and opening their pockets and spending money. They're so excited to spend money on mothers. And you know what they're searching for? They're searching for like best baby gift, right? Most impactful. They want gifts that matter, because I think most people are underwhelmed with registries. They know you don't need half the stuff, but there's not really another option. And so I think part of the answer for both of those questions, like how do we get out of the outlier and into the mainstream, but also how do we convince people they need services, is we need to join that together. We need to take the tools of the mainstream, right? The e-commerce, we need to turn doulas and postpartum care into postpartum products that can be added to a registry. We need to make gifting money towards those services and support as normal as buying off an Amazon registry. Like we have to take those behaviors and just shift them a tiny bit in this way that actually creates huge amount of change. And I think that's what we're starting to work on. And I've seen we've had $400,000 gifted to new moms. I know it's starting to work, but we've had $400,000 gifted in a $12 billion industry. So I'm proud of myself for what we've accomplished. This is the work. It's talking about it on podcasts. It's talking about this support as the thing that parents need and giving them the tools to get it from their community.
Yes. Well, I think the biggest thing that you said there too was the mom not doing it alone, sitting in her box for 6 weeks while she's recovering. We always forget that, right? While she's actively bleeding, while her body is transforming back to itself.
And nearly 40% of them are recovering from major surgery.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
And
then surgery with so many people having cesareans now.
And I talk about, in that fog, right, that you're saying, add in the fog on top of the physical, you're not yourself. And I say this, I forget which episode it was, but I mentioned when you're in labor, you're not in your right brain, right? You are for labor, but not for critical thinking, so the people around you need to be that brain for you. Same thing with postpartum. You need to figure all of this out when you're pregnant, before you're pregnant, not in that 6-week fog that it's a little too late. Still figure it out, but it needs to happen 3 months prior.
Yeah. I think here's the thing though about that I think that it's really easy to say that when you've been through it already, and then you go, oh, holy shit. I think the reality is that most first-time parents are absolutely blindsided. They hear it's hard. I kind of describe this when I think about the love I felt for my baby when she was first born. It was the most unreal feeling that I'd ever experienced. I thought that I had loved before. I thought that I loved my dog. I thought I loved my parents. I thought I loved my husband. And then I had this baby, and the love that I felt was otherworldly. And people tell you this, right? They can tell it to you. You can tell it to you. They're it's just like when we tell all of our kids about like, you know, well, when this happens, when you're an adult, you know, and you're as a kid, you're just like, yeah, okay. And this was the thing. It was like everyone tells you how much you're going to love your child and that it's unworldly, but you literally can't get it. Can't get it until you experience it. And then you're like, oh, now I get it. And so I guess that's the thing, is it's so hard because people go, oh no, I'm good. I'm ready. I got nipple shields. I gotta, you know what I mean? Like they think they're ready, but it's like one of those events in life that you really can't be ready for. You really can't. You don't understand how deeply challenging it is. But I think that when we're having these conversations, we can at least express like, no, listen, it will be probably one of the single most difficult thing you'll ever experience in your life. And you need support. Like you need those 60 meals in the freezer.
Well, and that's
right?
like, that's what an OB, I'm not even going to say an OB because like enough on their plate, I guess. Right. But like dedicate someone in your office, a nurse, a tech, someone who does the vitals to literally spend 10 minutes. And I know there's an insurance issue with that, but like spend 10 minutes going over a checklist at one of these prenatal appointments that these moms have to walk into and do all the things and pee in the cup and check the thing. Is so regimented. Make it so regimented to go over a checklist and say, do you have this set up? Can you, appoint a go-to person if you're starting to feel some way, like a checklist? Because I say this all the time. We all have an OB and a pediatrician. We need so much more than that. But there's got to be 10 minutes in one of those prenatal appointments that's just saying, hey, by the way, you should think about this. It shouldn't have to be the outliers trying to like scrape to these mainstream people. It should be the mainstream. The fact that it's not drives me absolutely crazy. I mean, Kaitlin, you were talking about, the 6-week visit. I'm so grateful. And I didn't know this either with my first, but like my midwife, my home birth midwife came obviously for the birth, 24 hours later, 48 hours later, 1 week, 2 week, and then 6 weeks.
Right.
And and it's like, that felt so good because when I was dealing with, breastfeeding issues or the baby doing whatever, like, oh, she's coming in a couple days, like from 2 days to 1 week, 5 days there. And then, I knew she was coming again. And it wasn't this long, like, oh my gosh, where am I going from here? And I also didn't have to leave my house to go to the pediatrician right away. So that it was like, I don't even have to worry about putting the car seat in the car. I have to worry, like, it's all these things that you don't even think about. And I'm not saying everyone needs to have a home birth and a home birth midwife, but when you're not having to worry about all those other things and someone's literally just coming to your home while you're in bed as you are, tending to you, it makes such a difference.
And your baby. Well, I mean, Kaitlin, you kind of touched on it about trying to get in the shower with your baby to go do your 3-day visit that you had to leave the house for. Like, I love the idea of being seen more often, but then expecting moms to get dressed and showered and out the door to an appointment a couple of days postpartum is also absurd. But,
Well, so I don't know if this is, if every state has this, probably not, but I just learned actually recently, New Jersey has something called like Family Connects, where they actually send like a nurse to your house within that first week to kind of check on you. But it's not everyone gets, like, you have to like sign up for Family Connects. And, like, I think they're trying to become more associated with hospitals and things like that. But, it is, like you guys both said, like, things are getting there. They're getting better. Little steps. Like, we're celebrating the baby steps. It just makes me so curious. And I know the answer, right? We already talked about it. It's money. But like, how did we get here? How did we get so far off of like tribal community focused birth? It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. And we dug a little bit into this as a team. And it literally was a Mad Men marketing era push, because it used to be nesting parties. It used to be putting food away and bringing things for mom and supporting her as a community. And now it's about selling as much stuff as you can. And despite, or like, regardless of what her actual needs are. And I don't want to get I don't want anyone to hear that and think, oh, you're against any stuff. Like, I think everyone in the space recognizes you need some stuff. You don't need it all brand new. You need different things each time. I had 3 babies sort of back to back. And with each new baby, I would treat myself to a new ring sling because that was my favorite. I also did all kinds of baby wearing, and I would get a new car seat because you can't really get that safely, secondhand, or at least I didn't feel like I could. Maybe somebody knows a way, but that was my big purchase for each baby. And yeah, I think that if we're looking back at where we came from, that's one of the factors, right? That's how we sort of got hoodwinked into this, like, we're going to spend all of our energy and money prepping the mother with products. But there's other factors too, right? Like, we used to live in multifamily housing. We used to live with grandma upstairs and our aunt in the basement, or whatever it was. But there were multi-generations living together. And so if it wasn't your mother, it was your neighbor. If you didn't have to cook dinner, someone was dropping off dinner, and someone could watch your toddler while you're nursing, or, whatever it is. There were just more hands on deck. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. Is we literally, I referred to boxes, like the reason, and I probably should have told the story before I said the boxes, but I was supporting a client once, a birth client who was struggling in the postpartum time. And we live in the suburbs, and so we met at a coffee shop, and she was just saying how hard of a time she had been having. And she said, I feel like we all sit in our little boxes separate from one another and then walk around nature preserves alone, and it's like, and I just resonated so hard with that. It's this, like, yeah, you're told you're having postpartum depression. Why don't you go for a walk? And like, that's a great recommendation. I'm not saying that's not. You get exercise, you get sunlight, you get fresh air, you get out of your house. It feels good. But when you have this network of all these mothers sitting in their tiny boxes, walking around nature preserves alone, you're missing the togetherness piece.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really think that is part of it. When we're sitting in, I'm sitting in a single family home right now by myself, right? I'm assuming the two of you are as well. Nicole, you don't look like you're by yourself, but still.
Actually, which is weird, I am. My sister-in-law is home today, and she took the 2 little, and the 2 bigs are at school, and my husband went back to work, and I was like, why do you leave the door open? You can't see because he was in and out while he was getting ready. But he left the door open. I was like, what's going on? And it's silent.
I love it. But look at that. Your sister-in-law is there helping. Like, that's your village in action right now.
Her aunt in the basement right now.
I love it. And when I had my 3rd baby, I had my father living upstairs because he needed to live with me for a couple of years. And it was such a blessing because we could run out for an hour when the kids were asleep and everything would be okay. Like, these little tiny shifts. The other factor that, like, we're not recognizing as part of this shift is that, like, our parents, when I was giving birth and having my babies, both my mother and my mother-in-law were still working full-time.
Working. Yes, that's what I say all the time. But here's the thing. I have a really interesting perspective because I have 6 kids. But the sun is coming in through the skylight, like scooting over. But I had 6 kids, and I had my first 4. We're a combined family. So I had my first 2 when I was in my early 20s. And then I didn't have my second 2 until I was in my late 30s. And that meant our first 4 were teenagers when we had the little ones. I literally had my own village right in my house. And I cannot tell you how much better it was. Not just because obviously I at that point had been a doula for, 10 or 15 years by that point. And so I had so much more knowledge about how to care for myself, but also the ability to have people in the house that could do the dishes. I didn't have to do the dishes. People were cooking. Our kids were helping cooking. They were helping, it just was enormous and so incredibly beneficial. But what's interesting in this idea of this, I say it all the time. We were not meant to be living in our houses by ourselves with just only our baby and our husbands.
Right.
Like, but we're sending people home and saying, okay, good luck. And we're sending you home with your partner who is equally inexperienced, but he's expected. I feel like we're putting enormous expectations on the shoulders of men to fill that role somehow. And it is unrealistic. And we wonder why so many men are now suffering also from postpartum depression.
Right.
Like, this is a whole nother subject matter, really.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that we just recently had a very serious conversation with our adult children about moving and creating a compound for our family. And to my surprise, I wasn't sure they were going to be down for it. But all of them were like, absolutely, we're in. What are we doing? How are we doing it? When are we doing it? And so we've got a realtor right now looking for property in Colorado so that we can we intend to build a family compound, and that will allow us to support them as they decide to grow their families. And I think more and more people are looking at this. More and more people are talking about it. I mean, you see families doing it on TikTok all the time. At least now it's in my algorithm, right? And I'm fascinated by it. It's just like people are starting to grow their own gardens more frequently, right? I think there is this movement that's happening to correct this.
100%. I mean, that's why we decided to move to Florida in 2023. We were trying to sell everything up here, go down to Florida. We had 4 acres so that my sister-in-law, who's now in her basement, she was going to have her own house on our property. And, not built-in babysitter, but she would be right on the property if we needed. And then eventually, when my parents retired, because my parents are still working, maybe they could come down and just kind of build that. And then we won't talk about all the things that went wrong while we were down there, and now we're back home. But the idea was to homestead, to homeschool, to create this, community space. And it's still heavy in my heart to do it, just maybe in a different state and in a different way. But, maybe I was trying to do it with my existing family, but more or less like what you're saying, Dawn, maybe it'll be with my 4 kids and how we build it as they grow. But yeah, I know we've taken a bunch of different turns on this episode, but I think it's all really important. And it all comes down to just, again, the village. Which
I want to be sure, though, that we get just Kaitlin. Will you actually tell people what BeHerVillage is? Because I don't know that we really got into what it is, and just I know we're over time at this point, but who cares?
Yeah,
absolutely. People are still listening, I'm sure of it.
I love it. So BeHerVillage is a gift registry for support instead of things. And so what you do is you use it just like you would use any normal product-based registry. But when you go to add the products, it's actually doulas and lactation consultants and pelvic floor specialists and all kinds of different support that exists in your local community, that exists nationally, or you can add your own. And when your friends and family go to fund or to purchase a gift, they are sending you money into your bank account to pay for those out-of-pocket services. And so this is really, it's perfectly placed in the episode, because when you understand the why, when you understand how much money exists out there and how desperately mothers need a village, it's this beautiful intersection of a normal activity. It's not an outlier to create a gift registry. It is not a big deal to send your family a link or a QR code, both of which you can get on BeHerVillage for your custom registry, and have your friends and family start to really understand the value of that care. And not for nothing, but most of them are going to go, oh my God, I know she needs this. I know she doesn't need any of that other stuff, or she needs a few of those things. But I'm so happy. That has been our overwhelming what we've seen from gift givers that come to the site. They're so excited to support new families. So check it out. It's totally free to use. You go on, you create a registry, and you can poke around. We have a registry building tool that connects you with the support you're looking for. You can send messages. You can add people to your registry. or you can build out your own team if you have one. But whatever you do, certainly put intention into this postpartum time. I think that that's the overarching message that I want you to take away from this, is that your postpartum time and this transition into motherhood, first baby, fifth baby, doesn't matter, because every baby, my God, is so different. You need to put intention in, because the existing infrastructure, the existing pathway that if you just turn your brain off and go according to like the schedule, will leave you floundering, will leave you struggling, will leave you disconnected from your community, from the care that you deserve. And so create a BeHerVillage registry, keep listening to podcasts, stay hungry, and stay active in your care, because you deserve the experience that can be available to you when you stay tuned in.
You said something about earlier about becoming an active participant the second time around. I could not agree with you more. I did the exact same thing. I just thought you go with the flow, and boy, could I not have been more wrong. So anyways, well, thank you so much, Kaitlin. And we're going to ask you our last question that we ask everyone is, who do you think is the most important person aside from what you have and what you do for the village?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to answer it a little bit differently, because I think it's going to be different for every person. But I will say this: you should have a professional that you trust. And so you can have a friend you trust, you can have a family member you trust, that's fine. And you should have those people. But I would seriously put some energy and time into having prenatal consults with a variety of professionals, with a pelvic floor specialist, with a lactation specialist, with a pediatrician, with a doula, with a maternal mental health specialist, with a postnatal yoga teacher. It kind of doesn't matter. But I think the most important thing is that you have a professional that is plugged into this network, and that you have created and sparked that relationship. Have the cell phone number of somebody who, when you ask a question, you trust their answer. You'll stay off Google that way, right? You'll have this resource available to you. And I cannot stress enough, we sort of touched on it quickly, but the prenatal contact, the same way you wouldn't, upon leaving the hospital, go order a car seat, right? You would have that installed and in your car, unless you're Nicole, but you would have it in your car and set up by 38 weeks, probably. You should have the same for your professionals. Make it part of your prenatal preparation is talking to different professionals. And when you're doing that, it's a gut check. There's no list of questions you need. Just have a conversation with them, see who feels good, see who you trust. And once you have somebody you trust, then you've done it. That's the person I think each and every mother should have on their team.
Yeah, you're speaking to what I created at BirthFi exactly. It's like that's the exact whole intention, is like having a professional you can trust, that you can talk to anytime. And that's it. It's like, it's beyond the friends and family. It's somebody who is really plugged in and gets what you're going through and understands so many different variations of your experience, because everybody has something different, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, well, thank you for coming on. I hope we do this again, because that was badass conversation. And gosh, you were such an incredible guest. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you both for having me. This was amazing.
Yeah, and I'm going to do one more plug. If you guys are listening, just of course in the show notes will be the link to BeHerVillage. Go make your registry. If you are not currently pregnant and know other people who are, send it to them. Be that catalyst for them. And yeah, thank you again, Kaitlin.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Speaking of the Village. If you love today's episode, make sure to hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
And remember, you're not alone. We're here, we're listening, and we're all in this together, because in our village, no mom walks alone.